Wow. Okay. Hi, this is Sarah from sarayip.com, Facebook, The Numbers Queen, and Instagram, sarayip1111, attempting to do Elon Musk's numerology for you today, and there's been more failed launches than the Falcon 1 so far, but that's okay. It's all part of the reading. So let me know in comments if you can see what I'm doing. I am very excited to be presenting those findings to you today. I have been working on this project for months. As you can imagine, I've read hundreds of articles on Elon, I've watched videos, and I've been tuning in through meditation. So it has been quite entertaining and a challenge, as you can imagine. When I began connecting with Elon's spirit, so to speak, he swore at me, which has never happened in the thousands of times I have tuned in with people. But I did find out later that's fairly common, and it's a way that he does communicate. So that, I suppose, was a verification. So we're going to get right into this today. I'm going to be covering a vast amount about Elon and his life, and I hope that you really enjoy it and learn something about your life as well. You are welcome to look up all this information. There will be a blog, and I'll place links under this video. Also, feel free to add your questions. I would love to hear from you. So let's look at Elon Musk's numerology. I am going to present this as a PowerPoint. Excuse me for that. It's just the best way that I could do it in a logical fashion. So here we go. I will be sharing my screen. Just give me one sec. So let's get this started. And I'll just place my friendly face up here. Let's go. This is numerology for Elon Musk, entrepreneur and the world's richest and one of the most controversial men. So my name is Sarah Yip. I am a numerologist, environmental scientist, and 1111 researcher and blogger from Australia. This reading is dedicated to those of you watching, to my family, my clients, and especially my Patreon group who support me monthly to help me to do this kind of fascinating research work. Now, I am aiming to present my findings as objectively as possible, but please understand I am human. And although my focus is education, you may detect bias at times. I'll do my best to keep things moderate so that everybody hopefully can relate to what we talk about. And I am recording this on the Gold Coast, on the land of the Yugambeh Kombumerri people, who we recognize as the traditional owners of the land. So very, very briefly, my background is government, science, fundraising, and charity work. I had a number of reasons to become a psychic and go into the spiritual field, including the tsunami, being a whistleblower at the United Nations for bullying, personal breakups, coinciding basically with 11-11-11, which of course is my favorite topic to talk about. And what I do now is I use numerology to connect parents with their children, people with their purpose, and leaders with their organizations so that everybody can fulfill time or constantly having to pay the middlemen, whether these are gurus, people who say they can lead you to heaven if you give them your house, things like that. So this is a direct way to get more of what you want ethically. What is a life path? I will be talking about this in depth today. It's basically from your date of birth, and this is all on my website, sarayip.com, for free. Your spiritual job description is given away by your date of birth. It's an important passcode. It shows me your mission and your focal points for healing this lifetime. Now, this is something I've been researching for over a decade. I've worked one-on-one with probably 4,000 or 5,000 people now, as well as reaching millions of people through my blogs and videos. I am huge on feedback, and actually before every reading I do a preliminary reading and also one after. I'm meticulous about improving the system, and I do welcome your thoughts below. So let's look at Elon. He was born on the 28th of June, 1971. So when you add those numbers from left to right, as I've done below, you can use a calculator or do this in your head. It adds to 34, and 3 plus 4 is 7. Now life paths range from 1 to 9, and then we have the master number life paths 11, 22, 33, and 44, all of which I have studied in great detail. Elon is a 34 or 7 life path. What are the qualities of a 7 life path? Now, I have a soft spot for 7s. When I was beginning my numerology path, I went to a course, and I remember the teacher saying that 7s had a really hard time. And in the break or recess, all the 7 life paths in the room came to me because they knew I was studying the topic, and they said, "Is it true? Is our life going to be that difficult?" So I took it upon myself to start writing these detailed blogs about the pros and cons of each life path, and that's what I'm basing this little video reading on. So the 7s, they are spiritual teachers and eternal students. They're always looking for answers and for the deeper truth. They are never satisfied with superficiality, even if they try to, act normal. They are incredibly quirky and the most eccentric. I call them the seekers or the wise ones. You could always call them the wisecrackers. They love to get the last word in. Now, when you look at a 7, for me, it's like a stairway to heaven. It's like a lightning flash. It's a very celestial energy. These people show us what's possible in a human body when we work with our spirit, when we challenge ourselves to reach our full potential. And you'll see that Elon is certainly living up to his numbers. Whether you agree with the way he's doing it or not, it's still very interesting and informative to study how he's using his potential. So this is from my website. A 7 is a deep thinker whose life proves that leaps of faith pay off, and that the path to success has many detours or failed launches, as I experienced when trying to get onto this call. 7s are here to become confident specialists. The number, as I touched on, looks like a cliff that you jump off. It is to do with the crown chakra, which we'll see in a sec. It's where we move from things we can touch and see to the invisible realms and to working with faith. A good quote is, some people believe in miracles. I rely on them. That's something that a 7 would probably live by. It looks like a street lamp because 7s love to illuminate the way for others. And it looks like a book because in general, I find 7s like to learn. They can be mislabeled as having issues in school because if they're not respected, I do find that they close off. So I would be looking at the teacher-student relationship. If you have a child with strong 7 energy who is struggling, maybe they need outdoors education, maybe they just need a simpler classroom with less clutter or, chaos. There's always a way. It doesn't mean that they're dumb, is what I'm trying to say. These people very much learn through trial and error. They don't just touch the wet paint, they roll around in it like pro hard. So if someone has chosen to be a 7 in this one lifetime, they have come here to especially focus, as I mentioned, on this part of the body, which is that connection to the spiritual realm. It's about showing that miracles are possible. The 7th energy is also about self-respect, our royal self, sovereignty, and enlightenment. So a lot of people in royal and political circles do have a 7 energy, including, for example, Queen Elizabeth, Princess Diana, a lot of other famous people that I've already profiled on my blog. Some of you might know I've been doing the royal family's forecast for quite some time for Yahoo, and a huge amount of my predictions have come true. And that's partly my psychic ability, but a lot of it is the homework that I do. I compare the charts of everyone in the family to look for coincidences, and that's how I know when something is destined. I've done something very similar with Elon's reading today, although not in as much depth. So sevens, as you've probably figured out, they are guides. They tend to be themselves in most situations. They are often quite protected from accidents and danger, and often have a special touch with animals. We know that Elon loves his dog. With children, we know Elon has many, many children, and nature. And I think Elon is still sort of learning about that part of himself, that wild self. The challenges of the seven energy to others, as I've mentioned, they can appear a little bit slow or really lateral. Like, as you can see, the number itself is not A to B. It's very much like A to Q to McDonald's to Z. So the way they do things, it can look dangerous or threatening or intimidating even. But it's just how they learn. And so it's good if you have someone with strong sevens to just let them get on with it. Give them a mad scientist laboratory or shed or corner of the house. Now, sevens can be incredibly obstinate if they do not feel respected or heard. And they do tend to be quite private, especially about relationships, sexuality, spirituality. If you probe them, they may clam up. It's something where they would prefer to answer those things in their own time. At times, I have seen them become a little paranoid because they can think a lot, and especially if they don't realize that they are empaths or sensitive, I suppose they can take on other people's stress and worries quite easily. Now, we know that Elon is a certain type of seven, and these numbers, the 34, actually have a special meaning. That's when he blooms, essentially, in his maturity. So I hope you're staying with me so far for this numerology for Elon Musk. This is an in-depth reading for my Facebook page, The Numbers Queen, and I do hope that you get something from it, even if you're not a seven. So the 3 is an extra focus on the solar plexus, which is the inner child, situated just here in the tummy. It's about having guts and courage to say what other people are thinking and release that fear of criticism. Someone who often has a strong inner critic, or as I say, unemployed genius. People with 3 energy are often witty and quick, and they can be scattered, which we'll talk about later. The 4 energy means they're generally quite loving, actually, although, you know, with that 7 overlay, it may not always be apparent unless you really know them. But the 4 energy is about love, it is about forgiveness, and it's about systems and empires. So you could say this 3-4 life path is about building a creative empire. And those numbers are specific turning points, which we'll talk about in a sec. So who are other famous 34/7s? Well, I've only chosen a few, and I thought you might find this interesting. So Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, both comedians and entrepreneurs, and they're married. They are both 34/7s, and it is common for 7s to attract because, like I said, they're both fairly eccentric. And just as the number 7 looks like a corner, you'll often find them sitting in a corner observing you. They are quite interested in futuristic technologies, and I believe actually they've had some contact with Elon in those areas. Bear Grylls, you might know him as that slightly zany TV guy who did all this stuff in the wild to survive. And look, 7s definitely can appear very tough. Elle Macpherson, you might know, the Australian supermodel. She had a very long career, and she was one of the first models to really make her own money and take ownership of the design. So there is, interviews with her where they talk about when other models were relaxing or socializing, Elle would always practice her poses. She always wanted to be the best. As I mentioned, 7s do come here to be specialists. Freddie Mercury and John Deacon from the band Queen. I have profiled Freddie Mercury. I love his energy. when I did his reading, he used to wake me up in the middle of the night telling me I have forgotten things. It's a crazy life. So, for example, we know that 34 is a turning point. At 34, he went on a tour of South America. It was huge, massive launch pad. JFK obviously was president of the US and, very pivotal in the space race, which again is so interesting. Actually just wanted to mention Elon is a fan of Queen, which is no surprise. So often, even if we don't know our numerology, our playlist and our bookshelf and our friends list is full of people with the same numbers because we just naturally understand that they can help us. And here we are, Johnny Depp, also a 34/7. That's a bit uncanny, isn't it? Because, of course, right now in the news, we have Elon, Johnny, and Amber Heard all in this massive saga. Okay, so what did happen to Elon at his numerology turning point, age 34? Now, this was, because I used the birthday as the turning point, not January the 1st. So that is a different decision for each numerologist. But for me, having tested this with thousands of people, I find the personal year changes at the birthday. So this was back in 2005, 2006. Now we know that the 7 energy is about basically flashes of inspiration, overcoming difficulty, climbing mountains. At that age, Elon was having so much stress. He had all these financial issues. He could barely pay his staff. And it's interesting that just, as it was looking like he would bounce all the payrolls, he got this massive NASA contract, and it was just before Christmas, and he ran out and bought Christmas presents for his wife. And I believe, I can't verify this because it was only on one website, that his sons were born shortly after. So he's got a number of children. And by this point, he'd had one son who sadly died of SIDS. He had the twin boys. Then he had his triplet sons. This is all with Elon Musk, who were born pretty soon after he landed that contract. Now, as a mother of 3, especially, being a psychic, my husband is a psychic, our children, and we all telepath, essentially. I do believe that the children, especially these days, can pull in favors from the universe. And that's why when, for example, parents come to me and say we want to manifest a house or things like this, I actually say to them, sit with your children and discuss it. Even if they're young, you'd be surprised how switched on this generation are. So around this time, Elon had all this going on, and he finally launched his Falcon 1 space shuttle. It did fail after 33 seconds, but, it was still very symbolic and very inspirational. And just after that, there was Solar City. So you can see his career was taking off. His family was blossoming. He was really coming into his power. And I do invite you, if you look at your life path, to reflect on what happened at your life path turning point. You might have to go through your emails or your photos or ask your family. It might have been good or bad at the time, but it will have shown you what you're here to show others and what you're here to heal and teach about. For me personally, as a 29 life path, that was when I picked up a book on numerology for the first time, not realizing that it would become my career. And there was a few other things as well with relationships. So I thought I would add some extras into this video special. What I'm going to show you is my secret formula. Well, it's not that secret. It's on my website, but I haven't explained it too much until now. Essentially, this is the table for Pythagorean numerology word analysis. Now, we can't prove Pythagoras used this table. I do believe maybe 100 years ago, they started using his name, probably for marketing. But that said, that is how it's referred to, so that's why I'm using it. Anyway, so what you do is you can take names and addresses, brands, and you can break it down into numbers, and it's super interesting. I've been doing this for many years now, even today. I was helping people with business names. If you don't believe in this stuff, what I would say is do your numbers and sit with it for a few weeks. You might be pleasantly surprised that it actually does make sense. This is a very ancient form of science, and so it's often poo-pooed. But I can tell you for sure, having worked for a long time in the industry, that many people in power are using numerology to choose dates for events, people for their teams. Now, it's not the only tool they use, and it never should be. This is really just something to support your decision making. But I can tell you it's being used more than you realize by the people at the top. Okay, so we've talked about his life path. We've talked about the pros and cons. Now, the life path is only maybe 30% of your chart. So it's actually really important when you're doing, for example, predictions, as I do almost every day, to look at someone's name. So what I've done is I have looked at Elon's full name. Now, this is all from the internet, so I just have to assume it's accurate, fingers crossed. And what we see is his name has a 3 vibration. So when you add all the numbers in his full name, it adds to 57, which reduces to 12, which reduces to 3. Now, the 3 energy, the solar plexus chakra, looks like lips. And I talked about it before. It's about courageous communication. It's the artist. These people can spin, they can speak, they can perform. They're actually amazingly good company if they wish to be. And this will be balancing out Elon's 7 life path. Now, the 7 by itself, often we're talking about people who might have been past life mystics, monks and nuns. You even see with Elon, he's giving away all his things. He's sold all his houses. He's lived on $1 a day. He's got some of those qualities of this sort of mystic still. But the 3 balances that out. It places him more in the world, makes him more accessible, more sociable, more family orientated. So that's interesting. So his soul urge, which is his emotional life and relationships, that comes from the sum of the vowels. It's a 29 or 11. So this is a master number. It means that Elon has major lessons when it comes to one-on-one intimate relationships. You can easily see that through his dating history, which we will touch on later on. He is looking for someone who's his equal, but it will take some time. This is a very intense number. It can be very on and off. The inner dream number in a name comes from adding up the consonants. Now, in Elon's case, it adds up to 28, 10, 1, which is the pioneer. This is how other people especially see him and what he most dreams about. And I think you could agree, he's definitely a unique character. Now, isn't it amazing how much a name gives away? When I was naming our children, we've had 3 boys in the last 6 years. I was very careful. We obviously consulted the spirit of the baby for the name. For example, with our son Forrest, we asked him for a sign. And as soon as we turned on the TV, we had already thought of Forrest, but we didn't know if it was a double R or a single R. As soon as we turned on the TV that day, it was the opening sequence of Forrest Gump with the title scene of him on the bench. And then within the next 2 days, we had 2 men with the double R Forrest contact us. So that was it. We knew his name was Forrest. But I'm always careful not to finalize a baby's name until I know them a little bit. So, maybe a few weeks after they're born, we look at the date of birth and we try to balance the chart. So yeah, with my kids, I didn't finalize the names until a few weeks in. And this is something I'll even do with businesses. It's okay to have a working title. Please don't ever rush this kind of thing. It's actually really important. I hope you're enjoying this video special. We've still got a little way to go. So if you've got comments, put them at the bottom. I will get to them, hopefully in the next few weeks. So just out of interest, what did happen to Elon at his name turning points? So this is getting a little more advanced. It's okay if you don't follow. You could always watch this again later or consider doing one of my classes or having a reading. Essentially what we see is it's incredibly accurate. So we know that he had turning points in his name at 28 and 29. Now, this is when he became the CEO of PayPal. He got married for the first time. He almost died of malaria. A lot of new beginnings there. At 29, his relationships number and turning point, like that was also around the time he got married. It was sort of between those ages. His career number, the 57-12-3. At 12, he sold his first game for $500, which is amazing when you consider, that amount of money back then. And at 3, he had his sister born, and he loved playing with trucks. So there was definitely that sense of engineering and, I suppose, a family business. Now, he's obviously not 57 yet, but I can tell you for sure there'll be something major that happens then. He does have free will how to use that, but I expect to see him back in the headlines, and it'll be something epic. So look, overall with the name he has, I've sort of touched on this already, but it makes him a good communicator with futuristic ideas who is seen as a hero. Now, good communicator is subjective, but what I would, I suppose, get you to focus on, he's been able to create teams of hundreds of people, like 500 people, at some of his companies. Now, it has to be said, he's known to have volatility and to yell at his staff, and we know about the lawsuits. But overall, there is definitely some sort of ability to convey his scientific and futuristic ideas, even if, it's not always smooth, and just acknowledging there are some issues there still. The name is just the potential, remember. So what is the shadow side of this particular name that he might play out? The 3 energy, they can be extremely critical, as I said, an underemployed genius. They're very intense to live with. They can be childish. We know that, for example, he does a lot of his tweets on the toilet, literally toilet humor, or a potty mouse, I suppose you could say. He does tend to jump around. We know that he has Asperger's. I personally also have a similar diagnosis. Maybe that's why I was very drawn to profiling him. So I have some idea, I guess, of the level of obsession and detail that he probably experiences. I'll correct this later, but there's that proneness to mood swings, and they can be a bit too single-minded. And I suppose with him, it'd probably be that focus on getting to Mars. And look, depending on, we believe there's already people and spirits on Mars, maybe not visible ones, but it'll certainly be interesting once humans get there. Anyway, so you might be interested to know that, for example, if I was doing a business reading, which I am in tonight's session, you actually also look at the known name. So, Elon Musk, it's like a brand. It's the name that everyone throws around, and it's the name that attracts a lot of energy that goes into his karmic bank account. So just for fun, because this is my idea of fun, I have also looked at this name. Now, I hope that you're keeping up. If you haven't, like I said, don't stress, take a break. This is a video. You can always come back later. If you're still here, good job, and I'm happy to know you. So essentially, Elon Musk, it has 11 energy. This is the spiritual messenger, someone who comes to bring us into new paradigms and new dimensions, to walk through the doorways of opportunity. So the next dimension. Now, I am an 11. I do know the energy well. And I often joke we should call it the don't shoot the messenger, because so often when you have strong 11s in your chart, as Elon does and I do, there is not always a lot of praise for what you do. And you can look incredibly erratic and extreme, but all I can suggest is, to be a good teacher, it's not always about being liked. It's whether people remember your lessons and apply them in their own lives. So he has a soul urge of 14 with this name. That's interesting. That is a karmic number, which suggests someone who is very, like I mentioned before, heartfelt, but it can be hard for them to have that much feeling in one body. So they can be prone to addictions, escapism. I've got articles on this on my site, which I'll link below. I often find people with special needs or things like autism as well sometimes have this code in their chart. Obviously, that's a generalization, and as a whole, you would look at the whole chart and, of course, ask the person to verify. And that inner dream of the visionary. So no real surprises there. and essentially means he has loads of energy, and we've seen he works incredibly insane hours, and that he's just so driven to change the planet and open minds. Now, I don't think he's working so much on the psychic side, although we'll see later on he has major psychic gifts. I would think they may come later. Given the children he has, he's got many children, some of whom were only born as recently as December last year. These children him into that side of his life, because I know at the moment he's more of an agnostic. I have to admit, I had a bit of a giggle. I was watching one of his interviews with Joe Rogan, and they were talking about being able to implant things in your head like chips so that you could communicate without words. And I had to laugh, because if you've ever talked to a pregnant woman or a mum especially, we have telepathy. We know when our baby is crying, even if they're miles away. I actually get visions. I had this vision once of this particular caterpillar, and I remember sitting straight up in bed, and then soon after, the preschool texted that one of these had attacked my child. Honestly, talk to mums and we'll say you don't need a chip in your head, but hey, if it floats your boat, why not? There's so many ways to climb the mountain, right? So yeah, what's the challenge of his name? They can be very polarizing and controversial. 11 is the notorious number. So many celebrities have this. We talked about that sense of maybe being addicted, for example, to social media. They can be prejudiced at times. And we do sometimes see this with Elon. Some of the things he says really make you grimace, right? And I guess he's a byproduct of his upbringing, and I suppose maybe the people around him not always challenging him on his beliefs. To be totally honest, if I had some advice for Elon, if at some point he magically watches this, I would say, be aware, being the biggest fish in the pond, it's not ideal for someone who's motivated by growth. It's easy to do because I think humans just naturally want a leader, but it's crippling at a soul level. And so I do feel it'll come through his children. And whether you believe me or not, I had a dream the other night, because I've been working on this for weeks now. And his children were literally poking me saying, can you please do this reading? So yeah, look, if they can do that to me, I'm sure they'll be even more forthright with their father. Who knows, maybe they'll see 1111 and get him into all that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the share for 1 minute just to check comments. So just give me a sec to do that. Just want to see that this is all still working. So let's just have a look. Give me 1 sec while I do this. This is all very exciting. Thank you for those of you who are watching. Just give me a sec, just checking that everything is still functioning, because at the moment it's still a one-woman team here. Okay. Yep. Okay, great. Well, I've got some people here, so I am still going to continue. And yeah, thank you again for caring. Okay, now where were we? We're just going to share the screen again, go back. So we do have a little bit more to cover tonight. And I'll just go back to the slide where I was, which was just give me a sec. I was just about to do his business names. Here we are. So we'll go from here. Okay, here we are. So, look, as you can tell, I always do everything 11 out of 10. So I did have a quick look at some of the businesses Elon runs. There are so many. I had to just pick a few. Now let's look at Tesla. We know that Elon's fortunate career number is 57123. Look at that. His business, Tesla, which he didn't found, but he was one of the first investors in, it is a 12-3. So bingo, straight away, we know that this is a really good fit for Elon. It has the same word vibration as phrases like sex, art, and baby. Now we know there's a lot of sexual innuendo with the Teslas. You can look into that if you want to. I won't go into it too much, but it certainly makes sense of why he's been drawn to this company and vice versa. I do believe that a company or business has its own energy or spirit, and that it does choose, especially its leaders, where there's a compatibility, basically. Let's look at SpaceX. So this is a number 23 or 5 business, which is interesting because 5 is all about travel and exploration and new worlds. 23 is a particularly sacred number. It is the same vibration as the word life, which is fascinating because, of course, SpaceX is about preserving life and making us like a multi-planet species. And also of the Hindu god Shiva, the destroyer. And it's interesting because, well, there's a lot of destruction with this company, isn't there? Certainly a lot of things tend to blow up there, including tempers and rockets. So obviously this is a very tiny and short look at these business issues, but I hope that you can start to see numerology can be really interesting, and it's really simple to do and easy to learn. Now, you're probably wondering, so what's the deal with Twitter? I suppose when I was tuning into this with Elon, it makes sense he would buy Twitter because he's basically putting his money where his mouth or his mouthpiece is. And we know that 7s like to have the last word. We see that Twitter has a 34/7 vibration. Where have you seen that number before? It's his life path. So again, we see this is a match energetically. I personally believe the sale will go through, but I do think there'll be a lot of hurdles. And look, all I can say is maybe the sale of Twitter to Elon Musk will, in a way, give him that almost like a church for himself. And let's just hope the congregation holds him to account. This is also the same vibration as mother and empathy. It can't be said, that he always shows empathy. I've certainly seen him, very soft and loving with his own children at times. But yeah, maybe again, this will be something that evolves as he takes over this organization. And we know that 7s learn essentially through harsh experience. And so I can sort of see it coming there. A few more things for tonight before we wind up. So, these are all things that I cover in readings. If that's something you want to look into, my website is sarayip.com. And what we see is you take the date of birth, you just have a look into it further. It gives us a little bit more details about what the person is good at. So the basic thing I wanted to show you with Elon Musk, he's got the 2, the 6, and the 9 here. So these are the numbers of devotion. When we look at what he's done, he's put a lot of his money into his ideas. He hasn't really saved much for himself in a way. And it's interesting because it makes sense with these numbers. It's like everything goes to his babies. Notice here the 7, 8, and 9. I have this in my chart too. Now, these are the highest chakras, the crown, the higher self karmic pattern and the soul blueprint chakras. And what it tells us is that he's always getting fed a lot of divine ideas. There's a lot of universal galactic support for him. If he so chooses to, he can basically be a type of prophet or predictor of trends. And you definitely see elements of that in his work at the moment. So this would be activated through a lifestyle with a lot of fresh food, fresh water, things like energy healing, meditation, Reiki, outdoors time. Now, it's pretty clear this is not what Elon does, but I would think there's some sort of cost as a result of that. Look, maybe again, it'll be his children or, someone else who leads him down that path at some point. We know that he's experimented with vegetarianism and that kind of thing. When I look at his chart, this is someone who probably would benefit from like really regular time out. So I've already mentioned all this. I won't go into this in too much detail, but I've included it because I'm planning to use this video as a teaching tool for my Patreon group and others. But essentially, what numerologists do is we look at the 4 seasons of your life. And depending on your life path number, there's these different ages. And it just shows us what are the years where big things are going to happen. So look, we know that Elon is now in a 6 pinnacle, and that is often a remarriage, there's a really strong focus on community work, visionary work, even psychic work. As I mentioned, I feel like maybe, at some point that will cross over with his Neuralink company and the telepathy stuff. His biggest challenge, and this has been going on since about 42, the age of 42, is it's to do with his guts and perhaps, a lot of inattention and even just power struggles, basically. So I just wanted to mention this type of numerology, we often do look at the family. So just very quickly, Elon's mother, May, she's an amazing character. When she was a single mother to her 3 children, she actually worked furniture when they moved to Canada from South Africa. And I think it was when she moved to Canada. So with her first paycheck, she bought carpet because they had no chairs. And she also bought Elon his first computer. So, she is also a visionary, and she saw it in him very young that he needed to be nurtured with the IT stuff, which is beautiful. She is a 36-9 life path, and their totem is actually an elephant. I love my elephants. And so what we know is, she's very fierce at protecting her children. She's also a dietitian and a model, which is interesting because she can make figures look good. And we know that Elon inherited that. He knows how to carry himself. He knows how to present, and literally he knows how to, push the sales through. Now, Elon is estranged from his father, Elon Musk. Excuse me, sorry, folks. Got a bit excited and something's turned itself off. Oh, well, I'll have to start finishing up, I think. Maybe the baby woke up and zapped me. That'd be about right. Gotta love all these technical things, hey? Gotta love it, gotta love it. Just go with the flow, hey? We were talking about Elon Musk. Okay, so we're just almost there, but I really, really wanted to show you this. So basically what I was saying is 9s, often it's their last lifetime and they might come back just to do one thing. And it's interesting. Elon's parents are both very strong characters, and it's clearly given him a huge amount of discipline. So yeah, he is estranged from his dad. His dad, kind of strangely and bizarrely, had a child with his stepdaughter, who's over 40 years younger, and I believe that was the tipping point for Elon a few years ago. So Elon does have siblings, and they're all 3s. I've talked about his partners, and that's something I'll be going through a little bit more with my Patreon group. But what you can see, there's actually a lot of synchronicities. So Justine, brilliant communicator, if you've seen her TED Talk. At 30, this was very sad, but this is actually when they lost their son. And, she talks a lot, I think, about that positive attitude and reframing things and sort of moving on, being courageous. Tallulah Riley, at 22, actually met Elon, which is really interesting. Amber Heard, well, you probably are seeing her in the media a lot. And Grimes, so Elon has had 2 children with Grimes. If you get a chance, do check out her music. She's got a really lovely energy. I'm thinking she might have perhaps autism as well or something, but she's a 1 life path, and she's just incredibly delightfully quirky. So I feel like she's going to be around in his life for a long time. And there are rumors that he's dating Natasha Bassett, who is also a 7. Now, there are no details of Elon's children in terms of their dates of birth. And you do find this actually, like a lot of famous people will do this, or they put the wrong date of birth. whether it's because they believe, that you can do psychic forecasts or whatever reason. But anyway, so just one of their children has a public date of birth, and that's his son X, who was born on Star Wars Day, which is pretty cool. And this was right in the middle of the COVID issue. And interestingly, just looking at his date of birth, I can see that the pregnancy in his first year of life was tricky, and that he will be doing a lot of healing around his root chakra and sense of security, in his early life. And we know actually his mother had a difficult time birthing him. I believe she had a hemorrhage, which is Grimes. So anyway, it's interesting because when X has his numerology turning point at 13, this is actually a peak change point for Elon. And that, I think, proves that our children choose us as parents. I have exactly the same thing in my chart with both my sons. My son Forrest has a turning point at 18, which is when I'm 53, and I have a huge shift there. And my son Ziggy also has a shift at 13, again when I'm 53. So if you are into numerology, make sure you look at your family. It's so cool. I feel like I'm just going to trot through these super quick, but essentially the theme we see with Elon in his chart is it's all about education, especially self-education. I believe it was around 7. I can't quite verify it yet, but he had this existential crisis where he read the Bible and lots of other religious texts, and they didn't help him very much. And then I think he read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And he found that a lot more useful. So it might not have been 7, but it was definitely when he was young. If we just move forwards, I've already touched on a lot of these different things. Essentially, he's faithfully followed his soul contract. It's just like literally spot on, bang, bang, bang. I've talked about a lot of these things. Look, we're getting closer to where he is now. And look, we live in 9-year cycles, and it's interesting. At the end of Elon's last 9-year cycle, which was when he was 47, so it was around 2018, he had so many things come up. Now, your 9 cycle in numerology, it's a lot of past life clearing, family clearing. It's a lot of karmic stuff, but oh my gosh, he just really got hit with the Mack truck. He had the issue with the SEC. He estranged from his father. He got into trouble for smoking a joint with Joe Rogan. He had a lawsuit with the Caver guy. Gosh, there was a lot going on for him then. And to be honest, when clients come in a 9-year, I often recommend that they, not take on too much and plan a lot of holidays and healings because, there's a lot of cleanup to be done. And then, of course, straight after that, we had a lot of fresh beginnings. We literally had, X born, and then this whole thing started with Twitter. So we're just about to wind up. Basically, what is happening for Elon this year, especially in his numerology? So basically, he is still in a personal year 3, because in my system, it's from the birthday. That will be until June. So it's, he's just about to jump into a different energy. But we know that 3 is a fortunate number for him for his career. So it's not surprising, Tesla's finally turning a profit. He's looking at buying Twitter, all these things. But it's interesting that in his chart, and you would only see this if you were a proper numerologist, the 3 is mixed at the moment. It actually has a challenge with it. So although this is a good year for him superficially, there's this other factor that says this could be also one of the hardest years for him ever. I think we're seeing that right now play out. He had a secret daughter by surrogate. He's been named the richest man in the world, which of course is a lot of energetic pressure. And all I can say is when I was preparing this reading, I definitely got a lot of insomnia. I just wanted to live on chocolate and junk food. I mean, I really felt like I was running on my adrenals, and being a very empathic person, I would suggest it's probably happening for Elon at some level. And I just felt this really deep need for some time out and stress relief. So look, I just hope, because he is a human, that he does do that soon. it's really important for leaders to take breaks. Otherwise, they're setting a pace that's really unsustainable. So given that Elon's all about sustainable power, it's interesting. We need to also apply this to how I think we use our bodies. So yeah, I do, as I mentioned, see the Twitter thing going through. I see him going more into politics. We've started to see him talking more and more about issues, for example, on the podcasts. I would see him marrying again, probably in a few years, or at least, a sort of, strong relationship. He's such an optimist. That's the biggest thing I was getting from this chart. He is like a star man, and I had like full David Bowie playing in my head all this week. If I had to sum up this reading for Elon Musk in a song, it would be a Queen song, and it would be Under Pressure. This is definitely someone who that's just been, from day dot, what he came here to teach about. So just winding up here, whether you like him or not, Elon is a spiritual teacher and eternal student, and he's showing us all the highs and lows of being in high pressure situations. I personally can still remember the first time I ever saw him. I was really inspired, and having listened to a lot of his podcasts and read about him, the last few weeks, it actually, it really motivated me to open an office, take some more risks. Even though personally I disagree with a lot of his views, I do think he represents a lot of hope. And so I suppose my verdict on him is I feel that he's a big mixture of yin and yang and light and dark. But overall, I still believe he's quite altruistic. We shall see if that changes, but for now, this is my prediction for him. I do believe he is really trying to help. I do hope that he will at some point open up to spiritual phenomena, because God, it will be a lot easier, if he can just allow that into his life. It'll definitely open up a lot of healing. So thanks for staying with me for this extended video session on Facebook. I'm just going to be checking questions and comments after this. If you want to contact me, I've got all the links here and I'll put them below. So thank you so much. This has been Sarah from sarayip.com, Facebook, The Numbers Queen, and Instagram, sarayip1111, with a super deep dive into Elon Musk's amazing business and personal numerology. So I hope that you will look yourself. I'm just going to go over now and quickly check comments before I log out. Okay, so there are a few comments, and let me just have a look. Right, okay, so I can't see all of them right now. I think the main question people are asking is, is Twitter going to become basically a hate swamp with Elon at the helm? I think that is a distinct possibility, but at the same time, I believe that there are enough good, strong, powerful people on Twitter that there will be some sort of reckoning where they have to clean it up. So I'm experiencing, there's going to be a lot of temporary earthquakes, but I think overall a whole new landscape will emerge. Look, honestly, a lot of people are turning off social media because of his purchase. That might be a good thing, because in a way, life is short, life is beautiful, and maybe things like this are spurring us to really value the time with the people who love us. So the jury is out, and I'll keep you posted. But just overall, thank you so much for supporting my work, and I hope that you got something from today. So take care and see you next time. Bye.